Hello and welcome to another episode of For Azeroth. My name is Manny, aka the True Villain Manny, and I am joined by the ever-smiling recruiter friend Sean. Sean, how are you doing this week?
Manny, I'm doing quite well. I've noticed that you introduce me first a lot, and it's giving me a complex. But next week, can we introduce anybody else other than me first?
I'm pretty sure I introduced myself first, and one of you two second or third.
Oh, I guess technically, yeah, that's right, you do. I'm wrong. I don't like being second. I'd like...
Okay, we'll come back to you then.
Okay.
Lex, hello to you, my other co-host.
Manny.
How has the World of Warcraft been treating you?
Well, the World of Warcraft has been treating me great. It is also, by the way, this is significantly more important for everyone to listen up. It is Leo season as of like 2 days ago. And I'm a double Leo. So I'm having the time of my life. It is the year of the sun, by which I mean month. But yeah, so I'm bopping. I haven't been able to be in the pre-patch yet. But I will be tonight probably. So we're very excited. And also more importantly, it's Leo season. You haven't been introduced yet.
You
Put your hand down, Sean.
No.
Yeah, you can't say anything. You have to sit down. Remember last week when it's like, I guess we should be nicer to Manny. I can't say anything. I haven't been introduced yet.
You gotta wait till you're introduced, my man.
Okay,
Manny,
Sean,
I don't mind being introduced
as
second,
requested.
by the way.
Sean, as you requested, we now introduce you. So, what's your name and what do you do this week?
Who is your daddy and what does he do? I have a question for Lex. What does double Leo mean? Are you not now? I am not asking this. I'm asking this out of genuine curiosity and ignorance because I didn't realize you could have two zodiac signs. I thought you only had one based on the day you were born.
I think I know this.
Yeah, man, do you want to give it a try?
Oh.
Lex,
Yeah, Manny, could you mansplain this to me after I asked Lex?
And then you have your like sign that affects you. So it's like Leo plus Leo rising or something like that.
Something like that. So if you get deep into astrology,
I'm more confused now.
So you actually have a whole chart. You have a whole chart of what sign all of your different planets were in. But often you'll hear references to the big three, which is your sun, which as Manny referred to as your main sign, your sun, your moon, and your rising. So congratulations. Actually, Manny, the fact that you remembered rising, I thought was very cool. 10 out of 10. Man knows astrology. And those are often considered the signs that are like the most important to your personality. And I'm sure get some hate for this because like your whole chart is really important in different ways because the way that different planets align with different things affects all sorts of aspects of your personality. But again, if we go to the big three, I might be misremembering this a little bit, but the way it was taught to me is that your sun is how you present yourself to the world. The moon is how you process emotionally, basically. And your rising is how you actually are internally. So I am a Leo sun, and I'm also a Leo rising, which I think is very funny. And I'm an Aries moon, which is another fire. So my full chart is 3 fires, which explains nothing about my personality.
I have a question.
Go crazy.
What
Could've been amazing.
does fire mean?
Okay.
Like, I understand fire, the concept
We're
of fire.
going real deep here.
But
All right.
you said these are... So at first when you were like, I'm a double Leo, that's fire, I was like, oh, that's hip talk for it's cool. But it's not. It's not what you meant. It is also hip talk for being cool.
Oh, yeah.
So what does fire mean? But we're going to move forward into actual Warcraft after this.
Yeah.
Okay, so I won't get too in the weeds, but basically there are 4 different ways. There's a lot of different ways that signs can be grouped, but the main one is usually the element they're grouped by. So there's fire, earth, air, and water, obviously. Fire signs are notoriously very high energy and the spotlight. It is kind of like cliche to the point that it's a little humorous. Fire signs are fiery. Water signs are emotional. The air signs are like airy, and earth signs are grounded. It's more complicated than that. If anyone who listens to the show like gets into astrology, they're going to make fun of me on Twitter, and I welcome that. I deserve to be made fun of on Twitter for this. This is the worst job of explaining astrology that I've ever done in my life, and also I'm not very good at astrology. But in essence, I am all of my big three are fire signs, which is a very like in your face sort of sign, which means that I'm very fiery.
Well, I gotta say, astrology seems like it's way off because none of those descriptors match your personality at all.
Thank you. That's what I was saying.
Okay. Separately, though. Damn, I said we were going to go on, but I just need to know, can you get a fourth sign?
No,
I just need to know if I can avatar this shit. Just get all 4 powers?
So, Manny, you almost certainly have every single element in your... The chart itself is huge, and it includes every single planet. It also includes obviously the sun and the moon. Every single planet in the solar system. I think that there's nothing, like I'm trying to think if there's other celestial bodies, but I don't think there are. So you have a lot of signs. And they all, if you get into the nitty gritty, like every planet affects you in different ways. So like when you hear people say things like Mercury's in retrograde, I don't really fully understand retrograde. But Mercury affects the way that you like, I think it's like logic and like how you think about the world. And so if Mercury's in retrograde, then you're not going to be logical. I think I got that wrong. I'm going to get made fun of on Twitter. I know I'm going to get made fun of on Twitter. I know this. But
it's okay, Lex. I know we're going to get other hate for people being like, oh, you went on this for so long. But come on, guys. We talk about a game where a faction I randomly chose 20 years ago affects me today. So I guess we could do planetary alignment for a bit. But I think at this point, we're going to cut it short. We're going to get into the news. John, you look like you're about to say something or try to smile again. Either way.
We're moving on to Warcraft now.
Okay. So, Lex, how about... actually, I'm going to throw this to Sean. Sean, we have some big breaking news at the top of the show. Start us off with the news from Team 2.
Yeah, huge news. Everybody at Team 2 is a double Leo, and they're all fire. Wild stuff. No, that's not the news. It was crazy news. Team 2, which is the Warcraft development team, the entirety of Team 2 unionized. Once they got through with the Microsoft merger, there was something that made it easier to unionize. There was some like
non-interference clause.
That's it. Yeah. So they unionized, and it's like I want to say it's unprecedented it was almost 600 employees, like literally the entire Warcraft team, all the developers, designers, engineers, artists, quality assurance testers, which is huge for them, and separately 60 other Blizzard QA testers in Austin, Texas, also unionized at the same time. And they chose the coolest union name I think I've ever heard, which is the World of Warcraft Game Makers Guild. And I so desperately want to be in this guild. I'm pumped. Go ahead.
They abbreviated it to WowGG, which I am in love with.
Yeah. Big fan. Big fan. Current devs and past devs have been catching a lot of strays and some not so stray, more direct shots on Twitter in the last week or two from quote unquote fans. And that's frustrating to read, but seeing this news come down the pipe, it's sort of like a salve for that. It washes away some of the taste of that. And it's just such good news across the board. These people make a game that we all love, far too much. If you're listening to a podcast about this game, you enjoy it far too much. So it's good that they are, protected, and hopefully this helps to avoid any major layoffs in the future and hopefully increases their pay, because there's long been a stigma of sort of that Blizzard pays less because it's more of a prestigious thing and the people who work there want to work there because they love it. I don't know if that's still the case, but I know that was the case for a long time.
I think that's the case in games in general, is kind of my take, my understanding, I should say, that you're paid in cool to some degree.
It's true that switching from gaming to anything else in tech sector, you typically would make more. It's also true that Blizzard has notoriously leveraged its name and the fact that you get that into your portfolio / your CV to like pay people less. Like, you know, they're like, oh yeah, passion. And like, you know, passion is so great when you're trying to keep the lights on. But you're right, Sean. This is a big thing. It is not the first wall-to-wall. We actually had that earlier last month. The first wall-to-wall union for a studio happened in Europe. It is huge that it is a cross-disciplinary union. That is amazing. It is not the first Activision Blizzard union, but it is great that they're doing this. Right there alongside, of course, the Texas Blizzard QA, which is the Austin, Texas. You're saying this is like nearly 600 people. It's over 500 at the Game Makers Guild. It is another 60 in Austin, Texas. You put that together with the Raven Studios, that was about 100. This is fantastic, and I'm so happy to see this. I do want to say that considering what we've seen with the industry lately, with so many layoffs, including the Blizzard team getting rocked, it is good to see that. When we saw those layoffs, I was a bit concerned. And Lex, every week you've been saying, "Oh, I'm hoping these guys aren't working themselves to death," and being able to negotiate for like better work-life balance is something a union can do. So really, really happy about this news.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's exciting, especially given the conversations we've been having for such a long time, especially since the lawsuit about the conditions at Blizzard. And it does, I should say, even before this, it did sound like things were getting better, but the layoffs are very reasonably scary. The industry as a whole has been really tumultuous. And so to know that they have this sort of collective bargaining agreement it makes it easier, I think, for me to play the game and feel happy with that, because I did always kind of have in my back pocket that like, ooh, goodness, like there's a reason I said every week, like, I hope, I'm a little worried about the crunch going on here. And so to know that they have that union and they have that organization is exciting and empowering.
There you go. Lex is not feeding off of exploitation anymore. That said, I think that kind of flows into the next story, because the next story is about the pre-patch. And so, Lex, I'm going to let you take this, and then I'm going to explain what in the world I'm talking about. Lex, tell us about...
Is the next story about the pre-patch? The next story is the pre-patch. The pre-patch is live. Dragonflight is flying. The war, it's within, besties. We finally have the pre-patch out. It was extended a few times. It ended around 10 p.m. PST last night, which is the 23rd for those of you who are listening to this podcast like a podcast. They're aka not as we do it. All raids are now awakened. The Mythic Farak mount is guaranteed drop. Keystone dungeons are available. Keystone Mastery and portals are still attainable. We have 26 days of WoW Remix as of today, which is the 24th, in case you couldn't do the math from yesterday being the 23rd. There were a couple hiccups. The Warbank is currently disabled. And like I said, maintenance got extended a few times. So there's clearly a lot of stuff going on. And my understanding is, like I said at the beginning of the show, I haven't been able to be in to play it yet, but my understanding is that right now we are in the phase that is heavily just mechanical, right? It's warbank or warbands. It's dragon riding on other mounts. It's things like that. And then we're going to move into the story phase next week.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is big. So you haven't had a chance to play. I'm hoping you get to play after this. But I've jumped in. And Sean, have you had a chance to play?
Yeah, you watched me all afternoon.
So that was your first moment. Take us through that.
That was, yeah. So I didn't log in yesterday. Going live at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. Pacific means it was 2 a.m. for me. I was long in dreamland at that point. So I gave it the night, gave it a bit this morning. I logged in around noon my time. So 8 hours or so after it had been live, give all of the add-on developers a lot of time, get their patches out, their updates out. And I logged in, and 10 out of 10. So I had a great experience. My login, all of my add-ons when I logged in right away were like rocking. There were other than one that is never up to date. I'm looking at you, Better Wardrobes and Transmog. But everything worked fine. I had no major bugs. All my stuff was good, and it's nice having this week. So the event itself isn't live yet. That doesn't go live till the 30th. But having this week to sort of familiarize yourself with what warbands are and what you can do. Even though we don't have war banks yet because they are currently not functioning, so they're disabled. But we do have other features like the unlockable transmog for different armor types, which is fun. I did some of that this afternoon. And the big winner, and I got to say, this is special shout out to Epideme from the For Azeroth Discord. He's a longtime listener. Big fan, probably the number one fan in our hearts. I think it's safe to say that, I think, without any clarification or overriding of that statement. But he pointed out in the For Azeroth Discord that you could join at bit.ly/FazDiscord that the low-key secret, like, big winner of warbands is the currency transfer device where you can transfer items, and there's things on there that we're able to transfer to consolidate all on one character that we didn't know we were going to be able to. Some of the things like Darkmoon Fair tickets or your time warped badges. So that, for me, I spent a bit of time this afternoon just like converting everything all to one character, and I'm really looking forward to the war banks opening so I can do that same thing with gold, so I can roll around in it like Scrooge McDuck.
Speaking of your war bands, if you are having a great time getting your entire crew fitted out and putting them all around over their little fire and being happy and excited, we are currently running a contest on the For Azeroth Twitter, which you can find at FAZ Podcast, where you can send us a screenshot, or you can reply to our tweet with a screenshot of your warband, and the warband with the most likes at the end of the week. So the contest ends on the 31st. We're announcing a winner on Friday, August 2nd. The person with the most likes will get a Stormscale Incinerator, and the person with the second most likes will get Mischief, the little kitty cat. So pop on over to the For Azeroth Twitter and show us your guys.
Okay. I think that's pretty much where I started. I was like, okay, I'm gonna create I'm gonna like go in, sort out all the stuff that I wanted to, because I had the night before, the eve of the pre-patch, been getting all my bank cleared out, and in my bags I had a bunch of the transmog from like a couple of raids and stuff that I had got on one character, but because of the new way that the warbands works, it would then unlock the transmog everywhere else. So I was like, sweet, great. Logged in, made sure that it had switched over, vended all of that, got a nice 5k, well, almost 6k gold out of that, and was happy about that. Decided next step, of course, was to like sort out my mounts, because now I don't need to use one of the dragons. I can use my own mount. So I've got like my shaman on the class mount with like the transmog that is lightning, and the mount that's lightning, and my Hearthstone. I finally got the War Within, so I've got the lightning Hearthstone. I'm like, yeah, everything looks cool. So I basically was playing The Sims for like half an hour, making sure everything looked pretty and that they were all set up, and then like running my ult into certain death. Yeah, it was The Sims for quite a while. Enjoyed the crap out of that, and then tried to get out of town, and that's when all the bugs hit, because I was like, one, there's lag in places that are not instance. If you're in an instance place right now, pretty decent. If you're not in an instance place right now, you can have like memory leaks with add-ons that haven't been updated that well. I had to like turn off a bunch of my add-ons. I didn't have the smooth situation you did there, and I've had disconnects, unfortunately, and stuff, but it has been getting better. Hopefully they're going to bring it down to fix like the crucial issues and all of that. But what was really annoying me is when I got into instance content, it's harder to farm stuff than it used to be. Enemies have more health, so they take longer to take down, and it's easier for me to like run around open world Dragonflight and kill stuff there, even like elites, than it is for me to go into old raids, because they have so much scaled health where I'm like, where before I would like swing my hammer once and one shot them. Now it's like, okay, gotta work on it a bit, and I don't know, I guess it's only gonna last this next little bit before we jump up to 80 and we start getting gear from like season 1 and everything will fall over again. And I have to remind myself that the scaling is set to that, so that we don't kill something so quickly that we create issues, because that's another thing. I went in to one of these things and I went in with a friend, so it wasn't just myself, and we killed, this was like Tazavesh, we killed the boss for the gauntlet so fast that it actually screwed up and didn't start the next part of the gauntlet. And unfortunately, you're locked in the room, you can't hearth while you're in combat, and my defensives, you know how I complain about shaman defensives? Well, that's gonna stop for a little bit, because I could not die for the life of me. All the boss needed to do, I'm just sitting there, like, let me sit down so you can crit me. All the boss needed to do was take me from roughly 45, or like 45% health to dead within 45 seconds, so that my passive, you gain 20% health, doesn't kick in. Poor boss, man. Like, I'm just asking for it, and the boss couldn't do it. And I couldn't hearth out. And I'm just like, what are we gonna do? This is the first time, guys, that I have been thankful for a server crash. Because the server crash saved me from this. Otherwise, I was gonna be stuck there all night. I just couldn't do it. And my poor friend who was there, who actually successfully died, couldn't release. So they're just like, I'm gonna go get a sandwich. I'm like, all right, I guess. I tried logging out, guys. Waiting for 15 minutes so that like maybe the instance would clear. Nothing. It wasn't happening. So yeah, there's bugs. It's disruptive. It's the Wild West-ish, and it's a lot of fun. But man, making that gold is also great. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. That said, Lex, I hope you jump into it.
Oh, for sure.
Do the stuff you did. There's a bunch of talent changes. Some classes, unfortunately, I am, again, screwed up. Remember how we're talking about how shaman talents have been getting better, and yeah, they were in that screwed up moment, but they've been getting better? This build is based on a couple of weeks back, which is not the worst possible version that it was. John, it's not the worst possible version. Remember when I was whinging?
That's vaguely familiar. It's hard to keep track. I know so many shamans, and all of the whinging sort of blends.
It's just a whinge flurry storm, and you're just like, what the?
Yeah.
I don't know where this came from. Okay.
I don't mind though, because I get to attack twice every now and then. So, whinge away, my elemental brothers, whinge away.
Okay. Well, it's not at the worst it was, but it's like a couple of builds from that, and it's not at the best it was. So I'm sort of like, oh, I don't have all the good things that I thought I would have. So I'm hoping that changes. So my expectation is that by the time we're sitting down and talking again, they will have put through a additional adjustment. We will no longer have all these bugs. We will have stable add-ons, and we'll be able to go into the pre-patch and really enjoy that.
And then we'll get the radiant echoes. I think we'll get the story. We'll get the killing Arthas while Khadgar says our podcast name.
That is true. But for other people saying our podcast name, I think now is a good time to talk about the people who really support us. And Sean, can I get you to send some love?
Yeah, I definitely would love that. We do love support. I want to give us so we love all support. Anybody who downloads the show and listens, whether you listen to 5 minutes or the full show, we love all of it. Thank you so much to people in the Discord, everybody. But we want to give a special thanks to our patrons. For Azeroth will always be free. But if you enjoy the content we produce, you could consider pledging to our Patreon at patreon.com/FAZ. You get some fun behind the scenes stuff that I don't actually know. Manny does it all, but I'm sure there's stuff there. And I bet it's great.
Yeah, there's
And you
at
get
least
Undying Love.
one every month.
Undying Love.
And the Undying Love. There you go. That's what it's
Undying
really
Love.
about. And of course, it is always free. Even if you don't put $1 for it, we do put all of that stuff out to all our patrons. It's just the people who are supporting us, they get a little early access to it as well.
Do we have the For Azeroth bathwater available on there for sale still? It's like one of those blind boxes. It's a random For Azeroth cast members bathwater that we ship to you, and then you have the fun habit of trying to guess which of us it was from.
I would be terrified. Terrified. That's not even making it into the final edit of the show.
What?
Yeah.
Well, it'll be the clip tomorrow.
Oh dear. Okay, quickly changing the subject. We have a schedule through the preseason, through the pre-patch, into Season 1 of The War Within. Blizzard has posted a wonderful article that includes the outlines of everything we're getting. So, starting with what we just got, back on the 22nd, we had the Season 4 end. That means that if you were trying to get the PvP ladder, you're no longer able to progress on that. If you are after a Mythic Plus title, that is no longer something that you can fight for. Whoever was in that 0.1%, they will now have that frozen, and they will be getting their title rewarded. But that doesn't mean that you, like Lex said, it doesn't mean that you still can't get things like the KSM or Keystone Hero, getting your portals. All of that is still available.
This is really exciting
So
for
the
me.
pre-patch.
Because up until 3 seconds ago, I didn't know that there were other Mythic titles other than Keystone Mastery and Keystone Hero. So I was like listening to you read this, and I was like, Manny, you made a mistake in the show notes. But we're so caught up now. Continue.
Yeah, there's definitely different rewards. Start next week. We will be getting the pre-patch event. That is going to be starting at once every, I believe, 90 minutes, and then it will speed up over the course of the next little bit till it's once every half hour. That includes a bunch of like cool little lore moments that some people weren't able to quite see on the beta. So this is going to be somewhat new to me. Of course, there are people who tested it out on the PTR and you can check out the videos for that. But the World of Warcraft team has also given a preview for that as well. Then we have that into August. In August, the August 20th, the PvP preseason will begin. So everything for the season ends, and we're just in that in-between start for PvP. That's because on the 22nd, early access unlocks, and everybody who got their Primo edition, their Epic edition, their Collector's edition, they will be able to jump in and do the War Within content, start leveling, and that includes access to the normal dungeons only. Then, on the 26th, the gates open up fully. Everybody is into the War Within, and that will include heroic dungeons opening up, and Season 4 PvE rewards will then be retired. That's a big thing, because that means that like there's going to be this weird in-between where some people are going to be jumping from their stuff in the Dragon Isles going over to Dorne and all of that, but still able to like go back and be in the Dragon Isles again. I'm not sure anybody will be doing that. I think it'll be very much concentrated, but it'll be a weird split between the team. Anyways, that means that the full pre-season of the war begins is in effect on the 26th, but that only includes heroic dungeons. Heroic dungeons are also going to be something that you can't queue for in the looking for dungeon tool. You're going to have to like walk out there as if they were mythic zeros during this pre-season time. Then September 10th. That is when we have Heroic Week. Season 1 begins. Heroic Week is back. That is not Mythic opening up, but it's different. Some people have called this the monkey paw curling, because people are like, bring back Heroic Week. But it's different than it was before, because while you will be able to access normal and heroic raid difficulty, as people were expecting, Raid Finder Week 1 for Wing 1 is also opening, so there's no delay on Raid Finder. Mythic Zeros are opening up, and the heroic dungeons will no longer be just the War Within dungeons. It's going to be the seasonal rotation that mirrors the Mythic dungeons. The World Boss will open up, and the PvP season begins. And what was missing from that? Mythic Plus is not available during Heroic Week. That actually will be unlocking on Mythic Week, the week afterwards, where we will get the Mythic Plus dungeons, the Mythic Raid, Raid Finder Week 2, the very next week, Story Mode for that, like, just see how the dungeon ends on Week 2. And then finally, the very next week afterwards, not 2 weeks later, but the very next week afterwards, we get Week 3 where Raid Finder Wing 3 opens up and everything is open for everybody. So, Lex, from your rating, do you like this? What do you think is good or bad about this? Let's start with your good on this.
I like it. I mean, to be honest, I'm very, like, when it comes to, like, when certain things open, I'm super go with the flow. Like, you just tell me when to show up for raid night, like, is my only vibe. I think this, like, this seems to make a lot of sense. I think it's good. I always feel bad for Raid Finder people because it feels like there's often so much space where they don't get new content, and people who are on, like, normal and above tracks are able to just start, like, blasting through things. So I'm really excited they're opening up Raid Finder soon. I'm also really excited that, like, for Raid Finder folks, they get Raid Finder Wing 2 and Story Mode together. So there's also no more of that, like, all of your friends who do normal and heroic raiding have already seen the last boss and are like, oh my god, did you watch that cutscene? It was crazy. And you don't get to see it. I don't know what that voice was. It came out of absolutely nowhere. But you, like, finally the people who do Raid Finder will also, like, be able to pop in to Story Mode. So when you get Wing 1, then Wing 2 and Story Mode, you get the ending all together. You don't have to wait for Wing 3 to open. So I think this is really exciting. I think it's going to be really fun. I do think it's interesting that this is also kind of showing that, I think, more of like a look at how Blizzard has started to see, for example, the fact that Mythic Raids and Mythic Plus Dungeons are together is very interesting, because I think previously Mythic Plus Dungeons have been, if anything, more like aligned with heroic raiding in terms of difficulty, in terms of expectations. And so I think it made a lot of sense for those to kind of go together, just given how clearly it was being seen by the Blizzard team. I think that Mythic Plus is now not necessarily like Mythic raiding level only, but it is certainly meant to be a little bit more at that level. And so I think it's interesting that they did kind of like pop things in different little places. I don't know what I think is bad about it. I think it's exciting, but also Blizzard could be like, raid doesn't open up for 4 weeks at the beginning of the expansion. I'd be like, well, that's how it is, I guess. So what do I know?
Okay, all right. Well, Sean, from your perspective, what's your take on this?
The biggest takeaway I have is that they don't mention delves at all. And the delve piece is a big piece. Not historically in Heroic Week, we would have the ability to spam Mythic Plus dungeons to target farm pieces we wanted, and to pre-build our vault. They would loot cap it. I think it was plus 10 the last time we had a Heroic Week where it was capped. Previously, it was like a plus 6 or something like that, where the loot was capped on it. They would loot cap it, but you could still farm it and get a bit of an advantage. And more importantly, you would be getting champion gear. They have completely removed that. And in its place, they've put M0. Now, currently in Season 3 and Season 4 of Shadowlands, where M0s have been squished to be the difficulty of a 0 to a 10, sorry, of a plus 2 to a plus 10, they are dropping champion track gear. In the War Within, the difficulty remains the same, but they have dropped their loot to veteran gear. So M0 now drops the same loot as LFR. What does this mean? Well, it means there's zero reason outside of one run of 8 dungeons for your vault possibility to run M0. And really, you're probably not even going to do that because the gear drops from it is so low. Unless we hear definitively that the delves are capped, farming delves will be the play for Heroic Week or gearing up in Season 1 of The War Within, which has a lot of people not super happy about it. There are some people that have said that, they're catering to the Race to World First. This actually hurts Race to World First players more because not being able to farm Mythic Plus in Heroic Week means they're going to have to do it in Mythic Week. So anytime they're not in the raid, they're going to be pushed into dungeons. Should the game be built towards them? 100% not. Who does this benefit? It benefits anybody who can't be sweaty during Heroic Week and spam run Mythic Plus dungeons to prepare for raid. So, normal people. It benefits them. Is that good for the game? Probably. Because it's a lot more of us than there are the other. How do I feel about it? Tinfoil hat theory. It's if they don't cap delves, and full disclosure, I expect that delve loot will be capped, much in the way that Mythic Plus loot was capped for Heroic Week. But if they don't cap delve loot, this is an awful good way to force a lot of players to play content they might not have played otherwise for a whole week.
Yeah. It depends on when they allow for the bounteous chests. Because if you recall from an early episode, when you do your first 2 of the activities, you'll get gear. The first 4 will get you those 100 shards that you can then turn into keys. Those keys are how you get the higher loot. And if they just say, okay, well, delves beyond a 7 or let's say a 5 can't unlock, that's the easy way to cap what kind of loot you can get out of there. If they just say, hey, you can't get the fragments to make your keys, that would be a hard cap. You would maybe do delves to get it up to, hey, I can do delves quickly to get some loot on the Mythic Week. Yeah. But yeah, it's very much going to depend on it. I think that in terms of the gear that we're getting, it's going to be a lot harder for you say sweaty, but I'm going to say day raiders.
Okay. Sure.
I'm gonna make that separation because there are some strong raiding guilds that still do their day job, and there are some strong raiding guilds that are able to take off the time in order to raid, and that's a separate separation from the echo limit. Method.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I don't use the term sweaty in a derogatory term at all. I just mean like anybody who plays the game 20 plus hours a week. If you play the game 20 plus hours a week, you're a sweat.
I don't mean sweat. I don't mean to say sweaty as a derogatory. I mean to say sweaty as undefined, and so I want to use a more I want to use a more defined term.
Okay.
Right. So when you get into like day raiding, that isn't just like the top 3 guilds. That can be something along the lines of the top 50 guilds, right? And those are the teams that are going to be able to, quote unquote, be sweaty to push through rotations of Mythic Plus and other sources when concurrently to their team rating. So I want to say that like the base level that we're starting at with this Return to Heroic Week is going to be much lower, because you are just not going to have as many attempts to get gear. The raid clearing through on Heroic is going to be one loot per boss that's spread, well, I mean like 3 or 4 to the raid team, right? It's going to be one attempt in the week. The amount of times you can do Mythic 0 is going to be incredibly limited because of this as well. Now I hear that's going to be a daily lockout. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, Mythic Zeros will unlock daily. So you could technically do 8 dungeons a day for the entire week, but as it stands right now, without knowing the status of delves, there's currently no reason to do that.
Mm-hmm. So like I looking at the context, I can't see delves being that the odd man out,
unless they want people to play them.
Yeah,
I don't think they'll disrupt the entirety of the balance just to like make people play delves.
Watch this space.
Go ahead, Lex.
Oh, I just assumed that if they weren't saying anything, that we should assume that delves are going to be open completely from the beginning. I could be wrong, but that was my take from looking at this. Like, you know, they're very clearly laying everything out, and if they're not putting something on the schedule, I assume that's a purposeful decision that like this isn't time limited. That said, I'm also in administrative work, and so God knows the number of times that people are like, oh, did you leave that off on purpose? And I'm like, no, I'm just an idiot. It's not 0. So it's quite possible that it just whoop, and we're all reading far too much into this, but
yeah, I should be clear. That's my tinfoil hat theory is just a for fun theory. This is an entertainment show first and foremost, folks. I'm certain that the devs know what they're doing.
Okay, well, I'm trying to give some information here.
Yeah, I just want to make sure nobody thinks that I'm like secretly like some Twitter hater. Nothing but love.
Sean's just upset. It's like ever since they unionized, it's been lazy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Union ruining my game development. More crunch. Again, this is. Please, if you're listening, this is a joke. I don't mean any of this. I'm anti-crunch. I'm happy they're unionized.
Sean's getting blacklisted as we speak.
My Twitter block list is so big that I wouldn't be able to see anybody complaining about it anyway. You know, oh my God, For Azeroth has that Sean guy on there and he hates employees. But that's not true.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to Heroic Week because as a sweat without a job, I can definitely play more than 20 hours a week. Some would say this is my job.
Okay, well there you go. Yeah, so I think it's going to slow progress for a lot of the people who are not in that top echelon, because they're not going to come in with anywhere near the gear that they're used to. I think it's really kind of fitting along that same lines that we've seen in Season 4 and Season 3, where there's been such a huge jump between where you start and what the content offers, that it's going to be that kind of slow versus what we saw in Season 2, where it was people were tearing through that raid quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say that I thought that my memory of Dragonflight Season 1 was that at least the first few bosses in that raid were just like face rolls. And I wonder if part of the reason that they're kind of capping gear is so that they can kind of down tune that a little bit and make it so you don't go into the raid and you're just like, oh, okay, goodbye. That's a night, I guess. I might be mixing up my season.
You had also talked about like, 4 weeks without raiding, and I've seen some people be like, wait a second, this means we're going to be going so long without Mythic Plus, right?
Oh, I forgot some people guys like enjoy Mythic Plus. I forgot that's a joy for certain players. Sorry. You go, Sean.
Sean enjoys Mythic Plus. Are you sad that it's going to be such a wait for Mythic Plus, or are you okay with this? You were around for Shadowlands?
Yeah, I played Shadowlands.
So in Shadowlands, we had like about 4 weeks before the season really began. That was a prolonged like 2 weeks of just doing Mythic Zeros.
2 weeks of Mythic Zeros, and then Mythic Plus opened to the cap,
Yeah.
to the capped loot locked.
Yeah.
It's really tough. The start of the expansion, there's a lot to do. If this was season 2, I would have more feelings about it. But season 1, like, I have to level all my characters to 70, so that's done. That'll probably be done in the 3-day early release, but we'll see. I'll level all my characters to 70, and then gear them to a baseline by farming whatever content I can farm on them. Plus, my raid team will be looking to get stuff in, so I'll be helping people out doing whatever dungeons they can't do from the ones that I do through the daytime. Am I going to miss the Mythic Plus? You know, it's only an extra week before we get Mythic Plus. When you really think about the start of an expansion, it's 1 extra week. I get it. People are like, oh, 3 weeks before I get it. That sucks. And like I said, this was season 2. Yeah, that's a problem. But season 1, there is so much to do. Story, side quests, rep grinds, check delves out. And then also, not everyone has been playing the dungeons nonstop in the beta, like myself and like a lot of the people who are the most vocal about their upset on Twitter. So it's almost kind of like a blessing. I think maybe it eases the ramp into the pug scene a little bit better. Mythic, you know, it's an extra week of people doing them on heroic and Mythic Zero difficulty. Mythic Zero difficulty is no joke. That's an extra week of people getting to learn the dungeons who haven't been running them for 2 months, which is needed. And then once maybe Mythic Plus hits, it's just a little bit easier. I think it's an easier ramping that way. I don't really have any strong feelings either way towards it. I get my joy from the people that I play with, and I'm going to be hanging out with those people no matter what content we're doing, whether it's Mythic Plus, delves, or, you know, farming rares. So,
Okay. Yeah, I think that you hit a really good point there, that being able to have that extra week on the Mythic Zeros when there's no time constraint so people can take the time to learn the dungeon a little bit more is going to be really good. And because Mythic Zeros are such a higher difficulty, being able to have people who are like, okay, I'm going to work on heroics for a bit, and then I'm going to get to Mythic Zeros, even if they start Mythic Zeros when the Mythic Pluses open up, they don't feel as rushed to learn it. Mm-hmm. It could be really good for the a greater part of the audience. So I like that. Okay. Yeah. Any last thoughts about this schedule that you would want? Because, like, I'm looking at story mode and how it's coming out before Wing 3, and I'm sort of like, I kind of wish that you could get LFR done before doing the quote-unquote story mode.
I disagree. I think story mode should launch with normal raid. If I can clear the raid on normal and see the end of the story, why are we locking it to people that don't raid? That just seems needlessly cruel to me. I don't know why we do that. And it's the same as LFR. I don't personally understand why LFR is time gated. I think it should all launch with normal raid, especially early in the season, because it'll be easier, because all of the higher teams that run heroic raids and that run mythic raids are running LFR at that same time. So it would be a bit of a boost for people who are running, like, hey, and I don't mean like a boost as in like we're character boosting, but I mean like, hey, there's extra people here that are doing this content that I normally wouldn't engage with, and maybe it's a little bit easier than it might be. And that's great. And you can see some tactics or what have you. I think LFR should open up fully with normal raid. And I think 100%, because that ship is obviously sailed. They're not going to do that. They don't do it for whatever reason. But I also think 100% that story mode should launch with normal, because, and again, this doesn't apply to me. I'm going to clear normal raid probably the first day. But I feel like if I was somebody who plays the game solo, who is excited about story mode, you're still making me wait 2 more weeks after everybody. Like, I'm still going to see this in a YouTube video before I get to experience it myself. That, if I was one of those people, I would be angry. I'm not one of those people, so I'm trying to be like, adjacently.
I think it's a misunderstanding of those people. Anyways, I think it's a misunderstanding of that mindset, because, like, okay, before you jump in, Lex, right? I don't think this is you either. I think this is people who like raiding, do not have the stable schedule to say, okay, I'm going to raid with a set team all the time, and don't have enough time to be like, okay, I'm gonna pug through normal throughout the week and I'll clear through normal over the course of the week. These are time limited people. So if you would have all of them open at the same time and just immediately there's still going to be a segment of people who are like, oh, I can't spend like 6 hours. Let's say it's an hour and a half for each part, and it's actually closer to 5 hours. I can't spend 5 hours in a week on the video game, even over the course of a week. I've got like one day where I want to go through this, and to have it concentrated to be like, oh, it opens up, and Tuesday I can go in with everybody and experience it with people, or even if it's like Tuesday's a bad day and that, where you're going in and it's an event to bring you back. I think that adds something to it, and that's a segment of people. That's not everybody, because I'm sure there are people who are like, oh yeah, LFR, and I want to get to it. Let me do it. Like, let's have some fun. Story mode, though, is just the last boss. And I think it's very weird to be like, I just want to deal with this, with like what happened at the end of it, and just be like, okay, I'm jumping into story mode. Because at that point, I've yet to see, and this is because I'm going in blind, I've yet to see what story mode offers that a YouTube video doesn't. At that point.
That's a fair point. I will say, the LFR raiders are not me now, but it was me back when I was a role player. And I agree with Sean. It felt so bad that you had to wait for Raid Finder, and like all of my, and part of it was that my non-RP raiding friends were like kind of jerks about it. I'll own up to that. But like, it did just feel bad to have like your friends like all freaking out about this like exciting lore that got dropped, especially as a role player, right? Where like lore was my whole world. And to feel like I did have to decide, like, you know, I was like, well, I want to do this on my own. And the only way to do that is to LFR, because I wasn't remotely like anywhere near good enough to move into even normal. Like I tried, and it was no team would have taken me at that point. But like, to not have those options, and I think I might know what point you're gonna make, Manny. And like, yeah, part of it might be that like what Blizzard is saying is like, if you want to be able to do normal, learn, right? Like there's guides, there's ways to do it, and that's a fair point. But as a previous like Raid Finder only, I did always think it was silly that I didn't get access to the raid when everyone else did. But I'm sorry, Manny, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I just think that like the people who are going to be talking about the lore bits and stuff, like that is such a small part of the lifetime of LFR, because every single time a patch came out, Wowhead, look, we've got this video from the raid and this thing, and people were talking about it before anybody got into it. So like, it wasn't really that people were raiding and seeing it with their raids. It was out there. There were videos showing it, and
there's something different between watching a video though and experiencing it yourself, because you did it. Your character is there for. Again, I'm not a. I don't know. I don't know.
I do.
I'm
agree.
gonna shut up.
I do agree. Like it is something special to achieve it, especially now that they have those like quasi cutscenes where your character's actually there, and you get to see your character standing there triumphant, and you're like, yes, I've done it. But like, I don't think that feels quite the same as when like my team and I get AOTC or get cutting edge, right? Or like clear through the boss on normal, and like, yeah, we did it. Then when I ran in with a bunch of randoms and we got enough stacks of determination, or the boss was so cakewalk that I didn't care, and now I get to see the cinematic. I don't think it's quite that same level.
I would argue that the LFR bosses are harder than the normal bosses.
But that's in spite of the bosses. People make that hard.
But if you're an LFR,
argue that LFR is actually the hardest difficulty, period.
If you're an LFR only raider, you're not going in with randos. You're going in with your people, right? You're in there with your guild is everyone. Anybody who joins LFR, that's your team.
I think it's a QA to limit it. That's not how it feels.
Come on.
I will say, if you were as a previous bad who did, and I want to be clear that I say that affectionately about myself. If you are an alpha raider who is like, I could never get into normal, you are not a bad. You are an angel, and we love you, and we support you, and I hope you have the most fun of your life. But as somebody who previously was LFR only, we are the people who are being like bullied so hard in the like text chat. Like, one of the reasons that I'm so like, I am the person who will go into LFR partially so if somebody is a jerk to other people, I can be like, hey man, like, check your own DPS numbers before you yell at them, or like, hey man, it's LFR, this is where you're supposed to learn. Like, I will go in to defend LFRs, is because I remember what it felt like to be like, I'm here because I'm bad, you guys. Like, that's why I'm here, because I'm not very good, and you're all voting to kick me out. But
From now on, for me, LFR will stand for Lex Forkin Rants.
So in my head, I was trying to think of like how to get Lex Rants to have the same syllables as America, so I could be like, Lex Rants, hell yeah! But now this is gonna be Lex Forkin Rants.
I will not get into my LFR rant right now, but I actually think that LFR is an untapped resource, and should be really good. And I think that if the more good people who get into LFR for practice purposes, the better it is for the entire world. But that's a whole conversation. I think the one thing I want to add to the conversation of like why it feels bad to not have all of the wings at once, the one thing that I do really remember is the Legion dungeon where the like planet comes into view, and you don't get that until you do the final boss. Like, yeah, like, to be fair, if you're an LFR raider only, like, you're probably not like overly fussed about these things, or about these things as in killing all of the bosses. But occasionally the ends of raids changes the game, and changes the
Mathria.
Right, exactly. And so to not have access to that when when your friends are having access to that doesn't feel great. And again, there's an argument to be made that Blizzard would respond with then get good enough and to do normal, right? There's a lot of normal teams out there. Yeah. So, skill issue. But I agree. I've always thought it was silly that Raid Finder's broken up like that. I don't get it. I don't think it makes sense. And I think that it should drop frankly, I think it should drop before normal and heroic. I think there should be a LFR week where we all just have to go play with randos and suffer and be in hell. And then it won't be hell, because if you have enough good players in an LFR team, nobody's mean. Because the only people who are mean in LFR are people who are bad and are compensating for the fact that they're bad. Because it's the one place where they get to feel better than other people. Sorry, I said I wouldn't do my LFR rant.
You launch all 3 wings of LFR in heroic week. They all go live with normal and heroic raid. It'll be the best week LFR that there's ever been.
Oh, true.
Because everybody's going to run it. Everybody wants tier pieces. Everybody wants to get in and see the raid. Everybody's running it. Yeah. I did not expect this to be the thing we talked the most about today. That's crazy. Manny's doing the face! For our audio-only listeners, we stream live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern to record this show at twitch.tv/TrueVillainManny, TRU Villain Manny. And you are missing out on a glorious smiley face that a couple of us have done today. Or you can see it on our YouTube shorts.
Good to know it's going to be short.
Oh.
That's going to definitely be a short. That's a clip for sure. Let me mark that.
YouTube short, sure. But like, man, no need to force people into LFR. I'm fine with it all coming out at the same time. I think that it does concentrate people into the different wings, so people are like, hey, here's an event, here's an event, here's an event. Somebody who doesn't have all the time on week 1 doesn't feel so that they're falling behind. But I understand that it causes some people who are in that weird in-between space that have the time to do all 3, that they feel gated. And time gating is something that people hate. Mm-hmm. That said, I'm speaking from my own point of view, much like we all are. So it might be that I don't fully understand it. Lex, you have more time there. I went from being a raider who was pushing high to an LFR hero, and but like I jumped right out of it, so I just have not had time for that.
I should also clarify that I was a very specific flavor of LFR runner, where like I was also a role player, and I also, as anyone who has listened to the show know, I have a quite an inferiority complex when it comes to doing any gaming things with people that I don't know. So I also might not be like the average LFR runner. I should clarify that.
Yeah, like it's very hard to speak about this because it's not monolithic. There's a wide range of different people who go to LFR for different reasons. So your response is just as valid as anybody's. Maybe not Sean's. He doesn't know what the LFR mind like.
I really just want it open so I can get more shots at tier. I'm wrapping it up in this nice package of the poor LFR only people. Yeah.
Well,
I'm a sweat in disguise. Hello, fellow LFRers.
We need more sweats in LFR.
Yes.
No, we don't. Some of those sweats are horrible.
No,
those
the
sweats
real,
are
it's not
real
the
sweats. The true sweats are good people. They help others. They lift others up. The people that push people down, they're pretend sweats. They're not real sweats. They're something else. They're garbage people.
Oh, I'll die on that hill.
Real
I could
sweats
be wrong, but I'll die on that hill.
Lifter-uppers.
That's a very wrong hill to die on. Anyways, I
You reject those people.
I like that you guys think that, and I think that there are good people at all levels and bad people at all levels. I don't want to say one way or another.
I'm going to need you to name names, Manny.
Yeah, Manny, who do you think's a good person? Who do you think's a bad person?
I'm going to need... That's right. I'm going to need you to name names.
We've got Lex, who's a good person at one level. We've got Sean, who's a good person at one level. We've got Epidemi, who's a great person in the chat. We've got great people all over the place. We'll leave the bad people out of it, but I just didn't name them for good reasons.
So if Manny didn't name you, then that means you're a bad person.
The world's divided into two groups. The people Manny just named and assholes.
And everyone else.
Come on, Lex, I didn't want to edit. All right, that one's saved. Anyways, if you want to put your name in so I can say that you're a great person, make sure you leave us a 5-star reviews, just like Danica in Montreal did. Now, Danica says, "Hello, I've been playing WoW since 2005, took a decade off, end mid-cataclysm, and have been full steam ahead since Dragonflight. I've been listening to current episodes to keep up to date, but also pouring through the archives to get the scoop on how players thought and felt about the game during the expansions I missed. It's been a wonderful chronicle to listen through. I appreciate the different different viewpoints based on how each host plays the game, as we all have our own spin on things. Anyway, you are my first and possibly only WoW podcast that I've listened to, and all the work that you do is amazing. Thanks for everything." So thank you, Danica. You should listen to other podcasts. There are a lot of great podcasts out there. And again, I do love that we have all these viewpoints. Like, this is actually kind of perfect considering what we were just talking about with our viewpoints. Thanks for teeing that up for us, Danica. If you leave 5-star reviews, we will give you a shout out on the show, and it really does help us reach new listeners as well.
And if you leave a 1-star review, we'll track you down.
No.
Lex not getting us sued once again.
Thank you. But yeah, leave your reviews. I do read them all, good or bad, and I do try and take them to heart unless you are an absolute jerk. That said, Sean, I'm going to turn it over to you because we have the last story being about tanking.
Here we go. I am listening. Warm in here tonight. Here we go. I closed. You can't see it, chat, because my camera angle. That's all going to change next week. But I have my posters up. But my door's closed to show them off, which means I'm not getting any of the air conditioning. So it's just me, the lights, and a very smelly dog. Got nerfed. That's a segue. It works.
Your silly dog's nerfed.
That's right. Here for Azeroth.
Never say anything bad about Shadow again. I will take that criticism to heart.
That's right. There was a tank tuning post that went out last week, I think it was.
Yep.
Yeah, it was It was after we recorded the show last week, so it was like Tuesday, I think it went out because it was a late beta build. And the summary of it, this came from Kyvax, our boy Kyvax, special shout out. New WoW GG member Kyvax. Tweeted out or sent a message out that tanks are going to take more damage overall. They're not going to be able to self-sustain as much as they do now. Healers will have to heal them more in dungeons, but it won't be to the point that they consume the majority of the healer's attention. And this shouldn't overly negatively affect gameplay, and hopefully will help everything to balance out a little bit more. And to quote a fantastic YouTube channel, it was a shit show. Twitter, so this post came out on Tuesday. The servers were down for like 2 hours, 3 hours after the post came out. So before the servers came up, it was, I want to say almost a unanimous, nonstop deluge of vitriol and complaints from people saying how this was ruining Mythic Plus, how tanks were dead, how Blizzard was out of touch. I blocked 3 people for the language they used towards the dev team just from this post alone. And then the servers came up and everybody got to test it. And do you know what happened? It wasn't the end of Mythic Plus. It wasn't the end of tanks. Literally, the very first poll I saw of the new build came out, and it was somebody playing a Guardian Druid, and they pulled every single mob in a +10 City of Echoes, Arakara, into one of the lieutenants, and then they cleared each platform in one pull. It was like what all of the mobs into the lieutenant, one pull. All the mobs into the lieutenant, one pull. And I'm like, what did you people just spend the last 3 hours whinging about? It was a very frustrating 4-hour window for me. And then after that, there was people who were coming out who were like, some of the most vocal that this was a terrible change were coming out like, they should probably nerf us more. These changes aren't actually bad at all. Oh, I don't notice any discernible difference. Healers saying, yeah, I had to keep an eye on my tank more in more dangerous moments, but I didn't feel like I had to do anything extra to go above and beyond. It's good for the game. It was a change that when it came out and people tested it and actually got their hands on, it was not the end that was being proclaimed to being. The problem is people who saw the post and then saw the initial reaction on Twitter and then don't follow it or don't play it themselves or don't track all of this stuff. The videos on YouTube that go up that say, hey, here's how terrible this is. You know, they watch that, but there's no retraction video that comes out the next day that says, oh, hold on, I actually played it and turns out I was full of shit for 30 minutes.
Whoa, I'm gonna stop you there.
Sorry.
You blocked those people who were vitriolic, and you missed their like heartfelt, sincere apologies to the devs. No, that didn't happen. They just continued about their merry way. Yeah. And it was like, and I saw some of these people that you're like, I gotta block this person, and absolute silence after the fact. So I get it. I was actually following a bunch of healers who were like, I got too much to deal with already. If I have to start babysitting the tank, it's gonna be over, sort of thing. And instead of DRing 104% of the damage, you are now DRing like 86% of it. And so the healer has to throw a heal at you every little bit. Yeah. To me, it is so much better because I don't understand how people look at Dragonflight and the complaints that we've had in season 2 and season 3, where it's like, oh geez, the damage is too spiky. We get one shot, and not realize that there's no in between, and they need to carve out a space there. Yeah,
I sent a tweet out. if there's something genuinely wrong that doesn't play well, that doesn't feel right, that is affecting the game negatively, you need to be vocal. You need to let the team know. You need to do it in the forums. You need to do it on Twitter, wherever you can spread that word. But you need to do it respectfully, and you need to do it with data and actual facts to back it up, not just feelings. And you also have to realize, and this is something that Manny taught me on this show, Mythic Plus tuning and raid tuning as well doesn't happen in a bubble. Tanks aren't tuned separate of everything else. DPS isn't tuned separate of everything else. It's all part of one system. So if tanks take a little more damage, that means they can turn down the dial that the mobs are doing, which means then they can strip back some of the DPS defensives, which everybody agrees is too much right now. So that DPS, instead of getting one shot from these abilities, are just taking, a big chunk of damage. It's still engaging gameplay for the tanks because they're taking more damage. And then the healer has something like where we completely removed a role. J.B had a tweet out that was like, imagine if there was a season where you didn't need tanks. So last season, we didn't need healers for a lot of keys. He said, imagine if there was a season where you didn't need tanks, where the mobs did so little damage that all DPS could just face tank them, and people were running dungeons, 4 DPS, 1 healer, no tanks. And then they brought back the ability that mobs are going to do damage. So the complaining that you're hearing right now is that's the equivalent of what's going on here. There was a whole season we didn't need healers. We basically told an entire roll of people, you're not needed in this content. They got to bring it back in. And then, people are going to say, oh, they're bringing it back in with rot damage. Bring it back in with consistent AoE damage. You're not a fucking... Sorry.
Manny, I've said it already. It's fine.
You're not a game dev. Obviously, you're not a game dev. So if you think you can do better, apply. They're hiring. They've got a union. It's great. Sorry. I don't know. I get really... I love the devs. I love this game. I love what they've created for us. I know how hard they work. It's tireless hours and it's thankless. And I just want people to have some consideration and the React culture that we have, that a post comes out, we hate it. A post comes out, we hate it. We play it, it's fine. A post comes out, we hate it. We play it, it's fine. It happened last week or this week. I can't remember what week it was. It happens every fucking week. Sorry. It happens every week. I'm really sorry, Manny. This is a hot topic for me. Anyway, the tanks are fine. The tuning feels great. And just chill, please. Try not to react to everything like somebody just kicked you in the face.
There was a period of time...
Tyvek's are still on the Christmas card list. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm all done.
There was a period of time around Shadowlands when I was relatively vocally making the argument that it made sense that people were and I meant this more in terms of lore, but I could understand why people were having immediate negative reactions and were assuming worst intentions and assuming bad faith when things came out, because we had a history that we could point to of things being done poorly or things needing rework. I don't know. I will say I don't know, with the benefit of a couple of years, whether I actually still believe that. That might have been a bad take back then. But what I want to say is, if you are going to say, well, in the past the devs have screwed up, so we should assume, it's reasonable to assume they're going to continue to screw up, I think you need to be prepared to the opposite too. And recently, the devs have been just absolutely knocking it out of the park. We have just consistently been seeing them listen and fix things with with a lot of thought and a lot of care, and move pieces together and not just move individual things, and listen and walk things back when they realize they made a mistake. And so I think at this point, if you are approaching things from the devs with the mindset of, oh, this is going to be bad, if there's 2 different ways that this could go, it's going to go the bad one. It's going to go the one where the dev didn't pay attention and didn't listen. You just want to be mad, which, whatever. Sometimes I go on Facebook because sometimes I want to be mad. It happens. But just, own it, right? Own that's your goal going in.
Yeah. I am glad that they have made these changes. I think that now that we've been playing through them, it's been pretty good. I was concerned about like the extra drain on the resources of healers and such, and maybe that would make them go and we'd have to be going back to like a Mythic plus meta where it's like, okay, healer needs to stop and drink. We're all taking a little break here, and I kind of like the more smooth stuff that we've been getting to, but that hasn't been the case. And I have had like my own stuff where I've been like, I've seen them mess this up before, and I'm a little worried about this. But big thing that Sean said just now that I think everybody needs to take to heart is listen to Manny. No, the thing that that Sean said is come with data, right? Like being able to like actually test through it and be like, okay, this is what it feels. You don't have to be a Theocrafter. You don't need to be able to break down what the values are. You just need to be that in my playthrough, and this is roughly about what I play through. I don't typically do Mythic Plus. I'm doing this on the heroic level because that's what I want to. That's what I typically do. This still feels strenuous, right? That is something that they can look at, and maybe they adjust where heroic is independently of where Mythic 0 and Mythic Plus is. But I think that sort of feedback needs to be backed with actual hands-on experience or data that is brought from that experience. So 100%, I think you've said everything that needs to be said on this, Sean. Unless you have something else
over,
to
you
say.
guys. No more for Azeroth. It's never being published again.
That's the last.
Sean, this is the final episode. Sean said everything that needed to be said.
That's it. Done. That's the last time Manny ever threw a topic to Sean.
Well, if you want to catch the next episode of For Azeroth, we are every Wednesdays on Faz, which is twitch.tv/TrueVillainManny. That's true without the E. And you can join us in the Discord at bit.ly/FazDiscord. Until next time, guys, may all your hits be crits.